ओ ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। हरि ओम। Whenever we study any topic in Vedanta, there are two aspects which are helpful to understand. The first aspect is analyzing that term thoroughly, precisely defining that term, and using that same language in our vocabulary. That is the first aspect, defining things precisely and getting familiar with that terminology. And the second aspect is, having done the first one, internalizing that which I have precisely defined. So both should go together. One is analyzing and second one is internalizing. Because Vedanta will not talk about anything which is different from me. Even if it talks about other things, all of it will finally come back to me only. So that is where the second one also becomes very important. If the first one is not done thoroughly, if terms are not defined, then there will be a lot of vagueness in our understanding. In our Sanskritam class, we had seen that for vichara, we need bhasha. So more precise is the bhasha, more precise is the term, precise will be our vichara, precise will be our knowledge. So if I don't do that, then I will miss out on all these things. But on the other hand, if I don't internalize, if I don't internalize meaning what? Having heard something, reflect on it. If I don't do that, so then our acharyas say, dukkha nivritti will not happen. Right? If mananam doesn't happen, if I don't think in the way that Vedanta has pointed me to think in that direction, if I don't think in that way, then it is just like, gargling water, not quenching our thirst. So both things should go hand in hand. Why did I bring up this topic? Because the topic that we are seeing right now, it becomes very important to look through these lens. So from 20th verse onwards, 19 through 24th verse, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji spoke about Adhyasa. From 25th verse onwards, Bhagwan is talking about Ahankara. So now same principle we should apply now. Ahankara also first understand with precise terminology, right? What is this Ahankara? We said this Ahankara is Sanghata Abhimani. This assemblage of different parts, Sanghata, which is there, the one who claims ownership about this assembly of what? Body parts, mind, sense organs, all of that you include in that assembly. That is called as Sanghata. The one who claims ownership over this entire Sanghata is called as Ahankara. Anything done by any of the body part, right? If I say I kick a football, although my leg has kicked it, sense organ was there, presiding deity was there, everybody was there, but Ahankara says, I kicked it. Eyes are seeing color. Ahankara says, I am seeing that color. So this entity which claims ownership of all knowledge, of all actions, that sense of finitude, that entity is called as Ahankara. And we saw the example of that lake. And this way of describing Ahankara over here is similar to what we saw in Dirgdarsha Viveka and in Upadesha Sara, Saddarshanam. Bhagwan Raman Maharshiji's style is this way. Those are different prakriyas, different methods of inquiry. So we should take whichever one we are most comfortable with and not get confused, okay? O Tattva Bodha, it is 4, here it is 2. You say, listen carefully, it is the same thing which is described in different ways. So we had seen that the top part of the lake, which has those ripples, they are like those vrittis, those thoughts. In the bottom part of the lake, which is relatively calm, that we called as Ahankara. And reflection of the sun happens in the top part of the lake and in the lake itself, right? The lake gets illumined. In the same way, reflection of consciousness happens in vrittis, the thoughts, and it also happens in Ahankara. So we use the word Sabhasa Ahankara and Sabhasa Vritti. Right? Dirgdarsha Viveka, we saw this. Antah Karna Vrittischa Chitichchayekyam Agata Vasana Kalpayet Swapne Bodekshayr Vishayan Bahihi. So this vritti also, having come in touch with that reflected consciousness, it gets enlivened to know the objects of the world outside. And this Ahankara claims that I am this knower. But what happens in and through all this thing is, I start feeling that I am this finite entity. And more I try to hold on to this identity of finitude, he says that itself is called as bondage. In our spiritual journey, we might have considered different things as bondage. Or even right now, we might be considering different other things as bondage. It could be some situation, some person, right? Some object. But Bhagwan says, it's a great evolution in our spiritual journey if we have come to this conviction that bondage is this sense of jivatva, bondage is this sense of finitude. In Vivek Chudamani, mumukshutvam is defined in this way. Bhagwan says, ahankaradi dehantan bandhan ajnana kalpitan. that what is this ajnanam? What are the things that this ignorance has created? He says it starts from this jivatva. Thinking that I'm limited to this physical body. He says that is the first seed of ajnanam. From then onwards, different things are there. But mumukshu is the one who has understood that where I need to focus on now is this jivatva. He says that person will be called as mumukshu. Mumukshu means what? Person who wants to free himself from something. But free himself from what? Say free himself from this notion of jivatva. Now, when we start our inquiry or when we start studying Vedanta text, we ourselves never felt that jivatva was our problem. We should be very honest. It could be for somebody, but we should see for our case, we never felt to begin with that jivatva is my main bondage. But he said the student of Vedanta should have samarthya to think in this way now. We go to teacher, we go to Vedanta with some idea of bondage. Now Vedanta is precisely defining what is the true bondage. Like yesterday we saw Mainaji. She says something to Himavan, she has one opinion. But Himavanji, when he tells her something, having this ability to understand that other perspective. So that is, a very great quality of a sadhaka, to own up this fact that really where I have to work on is this sense of finitude. Okay, jivatva is my main problem. You see, if this conviction becomes strong, then moksha is not too far away. Or another way to put it is, if this conviction becomes strong, we have already crossed a lot of hurdles. Not only in this life, it could have been in several past lives. If this conviction is not there, then I should bring that samarthya. Invoke that samarthya inside me and say, this is how I should think now. Let us chant the verse, 25th. Atmanas satchidam shascha buddhir vrittiriti dvayam sanyojya cha vivekena janamiti pravartate. So Bhagavan is telling us that you studied about superimposition, right? From 19th verse, from 19th verse to 24th verse. He says, now apply this understanding of superimposition. The greatest superimposition, if you want to call, that is happening is between ahankara and atma. He says, atmana satchidam shascha. Existence and ability to illumine of this ahankara is borrowed from atma. And what is borrowed from this ahankara or buddhi? He says this modifying aspect, buddhehe vrittihi iti. And both of this, dvayam, when vritti and satchid aspect of atma, they come together, sanyojya, avivekena. Because of ignorance only, this mix-up is happening. Janamiti pravartate. This jiva starts thinking, I am the knower. What Bhagavan is telling here is, I know is an erroneous statement. I am experiencing is an erroneous statement. It is possible only when this adhyasa has been taken to be real. In the case of jnani, they are also seeing the world. They are also doing some kind of action. But he says this adhyasa is broken. When jnani says, I know, They say that statement with this clear knowledge that this ahankara is knowing, I as this pure consciousness am not this knower. But this ahankara is not independently existing, it is borrowing Satchit aspect from me. So this is the difference. When an ignorant person says, I know, and when a jnani says, I know. In the case of ignorant person, ajnani, in English it becomes difficult to say ajnani, because they wonder whether are you referring to a jnani or are you saying ajnani? Ignorant person. Ignorant person is not taking that adhyasa to be false. Or he doesn't even know that there is this adhyasa happening. He says, I am doing this, I am working. But he says, inquire right there. Where is this ahankara rising from? There is a state in your own experience where this ahankara dissolves back. It becomes unmanifest in deep sleep. What remains is only Satchidananda. This is that thing which comes and goes. How can it be real? How can it be absolutely real? This is where becomes the precise point of inquiry. Right? Last time what we had said was, Vedanta's purpose is not to just answer questions. Vedanta's purpose is to question the questioner. Right? Who is this person? Who is this ahankara? Who is doing all these things? And Saddarshanam is one text where we get a lot of guidance on how to inquire. Okay, we'll just see the relevant portions. What happens is, sometimes when you're studying Atma Bodha, some of you might have studied Saddarshanam, some of you might be studying Saddarshanam. Many of you might not have studied it. So I will just mention the relevant points, and hopefully when we study Saddarshanam, we'll be able to remember Atma Bodha. So Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, how does this ahankara thrive? What is sustaining this ahankara? He says, Rupodbhavo Rupatatip Pratishtha. This ahankara thrives on different roles that we take in life, different identities that we take, and different forms that we take. Whatever that identity could be, any identity other than Brahma is identity of ahankara only. Okay, this we should make it very clear. Other than taking myself to be Satchidananda, whatever I have considered myself to be, all of that title belongs to ahankara. And however that rupa changes, rupa of this ahankara also changes. Rupodbhavo rupatatip pratishtha. It is born amidst forms, it is sustained amidst forms. All titles we get like this only, right? Title of being an employee. When I was a student, I didn't have that title. Because I took up some role, this ahankara says now, I am this employee. That rupa could be something of this body also. Body is tall, ahankara says, I am tall. Rupa could be of mind also. Mind is disturbed, ahankara says, I am disturbed. This is how does it thrive? Rupodbhavo rupatatip pratishtha. It is born amidst forms and it is sustained amidst forms. But one thing about this ahankara is, with a calm mind, when you inquire, it does not sustain inquiry. He says, dhavatya hankara pishacha esha. Whenever you try to question with a calm mind, he says, yeah, it makes sense. This ahankara is not there in deep sleep, it has come. Upanishads are saying that you are not ahankara, you are Atman. So many Prakarana Granthas are written. All of them are saying the same thing. This is when you inquire, this Ahankara cannot stand inquiry. But to actually start this inquiry, we need that type of mindset. Right? That is why what we discussed in the beginning portion of the class. Thinking Jivatva to be my main bondage is when I will start appreciating this inquiry. Raman Maharshi also used to give an example of the gate crasher in a marriage. He said there was a marriage ceremony going on, and one person came very well dressed, and as if he is a very well dressed, just like any family member, not even somebody visiting, just like a family member. And he started giving directions, where the food should be set up, how the chair should be arranged, where the bride and bridegroom, where they should sit. Everything he started telling. The bride family thought he's from the bridegroom side, and the other family thought they are from the bride side. So nobody questioned him. Whatever they said, they ended up doing. He said, put the yajna mantap here, they put it. But then somebody felt, who is this person? He's bossing around so much, telling everybody to do. So they sent somebody, to inquire where this person has come from. So this person was also smart. When he got, this intuition that somebody is coming to question, he said he disappeared. Somebody randomly coming there, he was just trying to play the role as somebody who belongs to this family. So Raman Maharshi used to say this ahankara is also like that. Next verse, Bhagavan is going to elaborate this point. He says, neither does ahankara belong to Atma, Atma's side, the bride side you say, nor does it belong to the bridegroom side, which is Anatma. Meaning what? It doesn't look inert like any other inert object. But neither is it non-changing like Atma. So neither here nor there, it is in between, but that is precisely what we call as adhyasa. That is where we have to inquire. And this, if we can understand clearly and keep thinking about this fact whenever we get a chance, Bhagavan says, Raman Maharshi, that this is the greatest kind of tapas. Ahamapetakam nijavibhanakam mahadidam tapo ramanavagiyam. Time and again, just reminding ourselves not to take this ahankara too seriously. Loosening this kartrutva through karma yoga, negating this kartrutva through jnanam. That itself is a very liberating feeling. That itself is called as knowledge. Knowing that I am not this ahankara and being able to stay with that understanding, invoke it wherever it is needed for me. Forgetfulness of this knowledge is what we call as sorrow. Right? Not remembering that I am of the nature of consciousness. I am that infinite Satchidananda Swarupa. And this ahankara is only a conditioned existence, a finite role that is there for a certain time. But what about the world? What about so many things that I have to do? You see, that also you do. Train our subconscious mind in such a way that our vyavahara is guided by dharma. We don't even have to reflect upon it too much. So that is separate discussion. But what Vedanta wants to say is, have you experienced the world devoid of ahankara? Has world ever existed devoid of this ahankara? There is no. So then search right there. That place where ahankara is rising, and with that ahankara world rises, it says search right there, you will find Atma. And if knowledge is there, even if ahankara is appearing, one can still confidently say, I am not this ahankara, I am Atma. We should not search somewhere else, right? Where there is the snake, there alone is the rope. So where there is ahankara, right there is Atma. And this is not physical separation, that is separation through knowledge. Okay, so the entire result of this inquiry should be, it should give me kritakrutyata. It should make me content. And for that, I have to dwell upon how finitude is bondage. Then only this solution will start appealing to me. Then only this solution will start making sense. Okay. Now the same topic, little bit more clarification is given in the next verse. Atmano vikriya nasti, Atmano vikriya nasti, Buddher bodho na jatviti, Buddher bodho na jatviti, Jivas sarvamalam nyatva, Jivas sarvamalam nyatva, Jnata drashteti muhyati, Jnata drashteti muhyati. Atmano vikriya nasti, Buddher bodho na jatviti, Jivas sarvamalam jnatva, Jnata drashteti muhyati. This is Atmano vikriya nasti. This pure consciousness, Atman, it doesn't have any modification. Why this topic is coming? Because knowership needs modification. That is why Bhagavan is mentioning this point. Atmano vikriya nasti, buddhehe bodho na jatu iti. Buddhehe bodha na jatu. Means never ever this buddhi is able to have the ability to know. Bodha means ability to illumine, ability to know. This is why? Because buddhi is made up of apanchikruta panchamahabhuta. Right? We saw that verse, right? Apanchikruta bhutottam sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam. So it is made up of matter. How can it have ability to illumine? Okay, Atma cannot have modification. This inert buddhi cannot undergo, does not have bodha. It doesn't have the ability to know. But it can go undergo modification. Because just like matter can undergo modification, this buddhi, it can undergo modification. Jivaha sarvamalam jnatva jnata drashteti muhyati. But this jiva is this in-between entity, sabhasa ahankara along with sabhasa vritti. This reflected consciousness which is there, that is the source of adhyasa. Alam jnatva means having identified with this body, whatever is finite. Okay, alam in general words means enough. Sanjata alam pratyaha. In Bhagavad Gita, Shankaracharya writes, one whose this thought of enough is enough, that thought in whom that has risen, he says that person is santushta. That person is content. So alam literally means that, but in this context, whatever is finite, this is that having identified with. So this jiva, out of moha, starts saying that I am experiencer, I am drashta. Forgetting the fact that its existence has come from Atma, its ability to know has come from Atma. Okay, this is the technical way of understanding. But as we saw in the beginning of the class, we should apply it here now. Right? Jiva sarvamalam nyatva. Instead of jiva, we should put our name. Whatever is our name, either it is masculine, decline it as Rama Shabda, feminine, decline it as Mala Shabda or Nadi Shabda. First case. And then say that person sarvamalam nyatva, nyata drashta iti muhyati. Having erroneously identified with conditionings, this person starts thinking, I am experiencer. So this is what is Vedanta's final teaching. If you want to say that there are several problems, several sources of bondage, but the fundamental source is jivatva. This you work on everything else, nobody is saying no. But he says, in that quest of working on other things, don't miss out on the fundamental problem. Keeping jivatva, if I am doing so many other things, says that will not bring us contentment. My fundamental understanding about myself is wrong. With that erroneous understanding, I go on gathering so many other things. If my understanding of myself is wrong, how can I guarantee the correctness of my understanding through this ahankara? Right? So these ideas are more elaborated in Saddarshanam, but only we should take whatever is relevant to this verse. Means after studying Vedanta, I should start feeling that my final refuge has come over here. Right? Payo Parama Vishrama. That after this, there is nothing more that I have to know in life, because the supreme most teaching is given to us. Right? You are not this ahankara, you are Chaitanya, Swarupa Brahma. And sometimes we say that there is still so much to be known in the world outside. Right? So Vedanta asks us, okay, you want to know the world, or you have known the world sufficiently to a great extent. Shankaracharya is asking us, have you known yourself? Not having known yourself, if you know the world thoroughly, he says that is not going to solve the problem. This is the Pratijna Vakya of Upanishads. It says, Eka Vijnanena Sarvam Vijnatam Bhavati. Having known that one, everything becomes known. In what way? First, that this one consciousness alone is appearing as everything. So you know the material cause, then everything becomes known. We don't have to separately go and know different things. Like if you know the nature of gold, no matter which ornament you say, this is gold only. So that is one way. Having known that consciousness alone is appearing as this creation, then this discontentment should go away. But the second is to know that the knower is nothing but consciousness. Right? This knowership which is appearing is only Bhranti. Actually, what is there is Chaitanya only. So both statements we should be comfortable with. Means when you say that snake is rope, that also we should be comfortable. In what way? Knowing that snake is mithya, what is there is only rope. So knowing ourselves, meaning not knowing about ahankara. Knowing ourselves meaning knowing about Atma, and then understanding that this ahankara is only an appearance. whenever we hear that phrase, right? Who am I? If you directly ask who am I, you will arrive at ahankara only. But Upanishadic way of inquiry is inquire into the real I. And then you see how can this ahankara appear here. How can nirvikara vastu and vikari buddhi appear together? Both are contradictory in nature. One is non-changing, unmodifying. Another is constantly modifying. If both of them are appearing together, that means it is adhyasa. That way you should inquire more and more. And sometimes our inquiry goes here and there. Either it will go in some erroneous direction. So Raman Maharshi gives an example also. He says, like a diver who is ready to dive into the well. In olden days, if something had fallen in the well, like some precious thing, they had professional divers and no kit and all. They would go in for some time, stay there, search, to however long they can hold their breath. From that well, they will come up then. But when they dive inside, for some reason, let us say they couldn't find it in the first place, when they came up, they will again readjust, again see where it is, and again dive in a precise manner. So Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, our inquiry should be like this. Now and then we might go here and there. Sometimes discussion is going on, study group, here, there, different points come. He says, be like that diver. Take a step back and again come back to the main topic. Right? Not for discussing with others, but for ourselves in particular. It's a great doorway to enter into our true nature. Because you cannot deny it. About the world, different people might have different opinions, but about ourselves, we don't need other people's opinion. Right? Ahankara is there, that I know very well. This is inquire right there. Okay. How can this buddhi or this ahankara, which doesn't even have sentiency, how can it run this show like this? How can it talk? How can it listen? So there you inquire, and there you will find Atma. Okay, so this adhyasa topic, where it is culminating, that also we should appreciate. Everything is culminating in knowledge of the self. Okay, jivaha sarvamalam jnatva jnata drashteti muhyati. Thinking myself to be this ahankara is the greatest moha that I can have. And sadhanas are being done so that my vyavahara is very well taken care of. This statement, somebody cannot say if vyavahara is too much bothering. Right? What do you mean I am not jnata? I am not karta. I have to do so many things. You see, you have to do it, and there is a method prescribed. Our subconscious mind should be so trained that dharma should naturally be there in our personality. That mind can confidently disown this ahankara and not get too disillusioned by this teaching. Sometimes this happens, whenever we hear, I am not Atma, I'm not ahankara, I am not mind, I am that consciousness. Then sometimes there is a swing to the other direction, not knowing what to do with this ahankara, what to do with this mind. This is mature and thorough study will not have that problem also. Both of it will be well taken care of. Now somebody says, what is the problem if this adhyasa remains? Let it be there. It has been there for so long. Anadi maya suptaha. Let it continue. My life is going very well. Right? Sometimes that question also comes. That what is the need for doing this inquiry? He says there is a very urgent need. What is the need? Without doing this inquiry, my fear will not go away. absolute cause of fear will not go away until I come to realize this non-dual truth and know myself as that non-dual truth. Knowing that this non-dual truth is there, that also is a great stage. Paroksha Jnanam it is called. That itself will remove lot of sorrow, lot of fear. But absolute cause of fear will go away only when I know that I am that non-dual truth. Right? It is a dvitiyatvai bhayam bhavati, means whenever there is otherness, that is a root cause of fear. This is also another beautiful verse. Guruji keeps quoting the second line of this verse. Rajju sarpavadaatmanam, Rajju sarpavadaatmanam, Jivam nyatva bhayam vahet, Jivam nyatva bhayam vahet, Naham jivah paratmeti, Naham jivah paratmeti, Jnatasche-nirbhayo bhavet, Jnatasche-nirbhayo bhavet. Rajju sarpavadaatmanam, Jivam nyatva bhayam vahet, Naham jivah paratmeti, Jnatasche-nirbhayo bhavet. That one example has served our acharyas for in so many places. That snake rope example, very precise. More we dwell on it, more we understand what is happening with Atma and Ahankara. So now Bhagavan says, just as having understood that rope to be the snake, that rope which is the only reality, taking that to be the snake, how a person gets afraid of that illusory snake, he says, in the same way, this Chaitanya Swarupa Brahma, having taken itself to be Jiva, starts getting afraid. The moment conditionings have come, all fear attached with that conditioning becomes my fear. Okay, Rajju Sarpavat Atmanam, just like that Rajju Sarpa, having considered this Atma as Jiva, Atmanam Jivam Nyatva Bhayam Vahet. There is lot of fear. Naham Jiva Paratmeti. Having known that this Jivatva is only an appearance, I am not this Jiva, I am Brahma. Naham Jiva Paratmeti Nyataschet. If somebody knows in this way, Nirbhayo Bhavet. That person becomes fearless. This Naham Jiva Paratmeti, what is it? What type of Jnanam is it? This is what is called as Mahavakya Jnanam. Mahavakya Janya Prama. That knowledge which is rising from clear understanding of Mahavakya, that will give this kind of knowledge. Naham Jivaha Paratmeti. That Parama Atma, that consciousness which is pervading this creation, that infinite consciousness, I am. These are meditation verses, and more we reflect upon it, more clarity we have, more we will enjoy our meditation. Right? Saying that I am the substratum of creation. That thing is called as Mahavakya Janya Prama. Jnataschet Nirbhayo Bhavet. Jnataschet, not Patataschet, Japaschet. These statements are not for repetition. These statements are for clearly inquiring, and whenever that inquiry is done, he said that will give us fearlessness. So if I just keep on repeating, I am not Jiva, I am Brahma, I am not Naham Jiva Paratmeti, Naham Jiva Paratmeti. He says that by itself might quieten the mind, but it will not give Nirbhayatva. Right? That fearlessness will come from clear inquiry. And this is the absolute fearlessness. Okay, the final destination. But somebody says, is there any intermediate level also? Because this is too high right now. He says, yes, there is. What is fear? How to look at fear? What are the sources of fear? What are the different levels of fear? That we will reflect upon next time. There are some questions from last time. Regarding verse 23, the 2 points about deep sleep are that all raga, dvesha and vishayas are gone. And the second one is instrument to perceive their absence is also gone. Is that right? Gone meaning it has become unmanifest. Right? Gone means not disappeared somewhere. It has just become unmanifest. Okay, so that point we should understand. Karana Sharira is there in deep sleep. Okay, so this much is enough, I think. Otherwise, it's a different discussion about Karana Sharira. So when we say instrument to perceive their absence is also gone, what it means is instrument to perceive has become unmanifest. These adhyasas, we can relate the same to current verse. Ichha, raga, sukham, dukkham, remove with karma yoga, with devotion to Bhagwan. Yes, we can do that. I think this is with regards to raga, ichha, sukha, dukkhadi, that particular verse. Yes, jnanam will not remove raga, dvesha directly. Right? All those things have to be cleansed through karma yoga and devotion. My swabhava is ever present as sat. The consciousness that is present during Jagrat Avastha as knowing seems to be not present in Sushupti. Example, in Sushupti, as Jiva, I cannot say I am aware. So the sentiency or knowing that I am aware is dependent on the mind. So we should look at the second statement carefully. The consciousness that is present during Jagrat Avastha as knowing seems to be not present in Sushupti. Rather than saying consciousness is not present in Sushupti, what we should understand is the mind that was able to say things in Jagrat, mind that was able to perceive the world in Jagrat, that mind is not available in Sushupti. If consciousness was not there, how do I claim on waking up that I experienced deep sleep? For any experience to take place, first consciousness has to be there. Right? So consciousness will be the drashta of abhava of that thing. Right? So Chaitanya is not absent in deep sleep. So to say anything, to claim anything, mind is required. To be consciousness, mind is not required. Means to say I am consciousness, to verbalize this, to think about Vedanta that talks about this consciousness, you need mind, you need sense organs, everything. But if they are not there, that doesn't mean consciousness has become absent. Conditioned existence is helpful for us to know that which is conditioned. Right? One example that is generally given in our Shastra is, have you seen in olden house that there is a beam of light that comes from the roof, right? Because they have certain daylighting things, daylight harvesting strategies. Right from those times they had it. The top glass will be there, and then a beam of light will come. But you cannot see that light directly. But if you put your hand in between, you say, this light is falling over here. So now what did the hand do? the hand was helpful in recognizing the presence of that light. But hand is not creating that light. And if hand is not there, doesn't mean light is not there. So mind is exactly like this hand. Our sense organs, body, everything, whatever is conditioned existence, that helps us recognize that thing which is getting conditioned. Right? Existence conditioned is called as an object. Somebody asked Gurudev, he was standing in front of a tree. He said, Gurudev, what is this? He said, this is existence appearing as a tree. So conditioned existence can help me shift my attention back to unconditioned existence. Conditioned consciousness can help me shift my attention back to unconditioned consciousness. Now comes the most important one. Conditioned Ananda can also help me shift back to unconditioned Ananda. Okay, this much is enough. I think more we can reflect on it. Does ahankara dissolve completely in deep sleep? So it dissolves in the sense it becomes unmanifest. And how this ahankara, is able to recollect, it's a different discussion. It's in a different text altogether, and that we will see when we cover that text. Because this question is precisely about, does ahankara dissolve completely or not? It dissolves, but it becomes unmanifest. It doesn't become absent completely. If it had completely gotten destroyed, next day some new ahankara should have come back, right? I never feel that way, that what I was yesterday, I don't feel today I am some totally different person. So that ahankara wakes up, and it wakes up in the same body. Right? That tadatmya which it has, karmajanya tadatmya, is with the same body. Is ahankara also not a thought? Is it that it is relatively unchanging as compared to intellect or the mind? That is true. Ahankara is also a thought. That is why we had seen the word as aham vritti, right? And idam vritti. Idam means this thought. Aham means I thought. When we say ahankara is relatively unchanging, it is to just explain our own experience. Now, since 5 years or since yesterday or today, if I just look at myself, right? Do I feel I'm a different person altogether? Means, do I feel yesterday who attended Ramayana class, if you attended, is a different person than the one who is attending Atma Bodha class today? He says, no, I don't feel that way. That is what we call as relatively unchanging. But actually speaking, things have changed. Body cells have changed. I've grown older by one day. Mind might be in a different way. But yet I don't feel that I am a completely different person at every time. So this continuity that this ahankara feels is because of its tadatmya with Atma. So actually speaking, the continuity doesn't belong to ahankara. The continuity belongs to Atma. Because this adhyasa is there, this tadatmya is there, ahankara erroneously keeps feeling that I am same all the time. Okay, so that is why we use the word relatively unchanging, just to explain our experience. Actually, if you see, that ahankara part is constantly modifying. Okay, this is a little subtle topic. You can write it down, reflect on it. More questions we can discuss. You use terminology Chaitanya, consciousness. I believe it is not different than Atman. If yes, what context is it used for? to refer to Atman. Yes, whenever I say Chaitanya, it is the same as Sakshi, same as Atma. It is not some other context. Okay. Is Jiva Ahankara or is Jivatva derived from Ahankara? See, Jiva itself is Ahankara. And Jivatva derived means what? It is not, some kind of byproduct or something. Thinking myself to be conditioned is what is called as Jivatva. Right? So precise way to think about this is go back to, I think, 16th verse of Drigdrishya Viveka. 16. That is where Vyavaharik Jiva was defined. So whenever we have question about Jiva, always we should refer back to that verse. What was that verse? Sakshinav Purato Bhati. So there are 5 things in a Jiva. First one is Sakshi. Lingam Dehena Sanyutam. Then there are the 3 bodies. Right? Lingam Dehena Sanyutam, or in particular, the subtle body. Chitichaya Samaveshat Jivasyat Vyavaharikah. Along with this reflected consciousness, this entire entity is called as Jiva. Right? What are the 5 things? One is Sakshi, gross body, subtle body, causal body, and reflected consciousness. If you want to put reflected consciousness here, then it's convenient, Original consciousness, reflected consciousness, and other 3. So when this Atma identifies with these 3, that itself is called as Jiva. Right? What we otherwise call as Ahankara. So that is this conditioned existence. So either I will identify with gross body and have one role, one hat I will wear. Either I will identify with subtle body or causal body, and that way I will keep having different hats. Okay, so there is where Bhagavan is telling us we should inquire. Okay, so there are other questions which we'll take next time. Hari Om. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.